Every once in a while, an odd piece walks in, something we just don't see every day. A lot of this equipment that we're going to go over today, it's hard to find any information at all online. I always like doing these videos because it does give us a reason to talk about something other than Pioneer, Sansui, and Marantz. It's going to be fun. Here we go. This video is brought to you by SkylabsAudio.com and the Cambridge Audio Alpha Duo Phono Preamp. The Duo is one of the most versatile phono preamps on the market with moving coil and moving magnet inputs. And the headphone amplifier is perfect for you late night listeners or for those wanting a turntable at their desk. For more information on the Cambridge Audio Alpha Duo, head over to SkylabsAudio.com. Really appreciate you supporting the channel and our small business here in West Des Moines, Iowa. Thanks. And the first one I wanted to show you is the Sanyo turntable. In 1978, it was a whopping 90 bucks. 90 bucks. This is a belt drive turntable with auto return. And in all honesty, this is built just as well as the Pioneer Kenwood Techniques turntables that came out in 1978 at that same price point. This really reminds me of like a Pioneer PL15D. I actually like the looks of this turntable. You know, it is a vinyl wrap, this gray vinyl wrap on the side. Let me just say this, and I'm going to incriminate myself by saying this. I think we could put a lot of people in two categories, and one group puts a lot of emphasis on the badge, the name of the product. And I am in this camp on some things. The tattoo artist next door and I were just talking about this. He's looking to buy a new guitar. He's played Gibsons his whole life. They just came out with an Epiphone that is just as good in a lot of ways as the Gibson. He can't pull the trigger on it. And I'm the same way. When it comes to electronics, musical instruments, stuff like that, that badge means a lot to me. The funny thing is with like clothes, cars, things that other people, the brand means a lot to, it doesn't mean anything to me. But the brand of my turntable, I don't know why, but it's different. I know it's ridiculous that I feel that way, but I do. That's just me being honest. I think a lot of you out there, if you're honest with yourself, would agree. And for some reason in my head, I think about a future conversation with somebody where they say, well, what kind of turntable do you have? And I say, it's a Sanyo. But it's really good. And for that reason, honestly, I'd probably never have a Sanyo as my daily driver. And maybe that makes me shallow, or it means that I care too much about what other people think, but it's a thing. It's real. I admit it. But this is a really good turntable. There's absolutely nothing about this turntable that is less quality than a Pioneer or a Kenwood from this era, or Sansui even. You know, for 90 bucks in 1978, somebody had a really good time with this turntable because they took care of it. You know, that's a sign that somebody really appreciated it for what it is. This is definitely one of those turntables that's got the quality, and you can get cheap. If you can find one even on eBay, you're not going to pay much for this. It's got some weight to it too. This isn't a toy. It's a cool turntable. I wish it didn't say Sanyo on it. I'm sorry. And our next rarity are the Rectilinear Model 6s. This is a two-way design, and in 1975, they were 90 bucks each. Real wood veneer, 8 ohms. They do have a tweeter potentiometer in the back. These Rectilinears do have a front port on them, which is kind of uncommon in this era, especially for the East Coast. These were made in New York. And when you think about acoustic research, Advent, Boston Acoustics, most of those speakers were acoustic suspension design. I think most people that have been in this hobby a while know what Rectilinear is. This is one of those speakers that's on this list because we just don't see them here. You know, on the East Coast, I'm sure you see these quite a bit, even in California. But in the Midwest, no. For anybody out there that might be wanting to put together like a Scooby-Doo shagtastic basement and really, you know, hit the 70s hard, this is the speaker you want. I mean, I don't think anything screams the 70s more than that grill. Nice thing too, this is plastic. You know, with some of the wood lattice grills, it makes it really tough to clean those. And trust me, they get dirt and dust, especially if they've been in a smoking environment. It's even worse. You got to get in there with a toothbrush and Q-tips and try and get all that dust and junk out of there. This is nice because you can essentially hose this off. It's plastic, and then put your cloth back on. And this is actually the first rectilinear speaker I've ever heard. I really like this speaker. The person I bought them from did the upgrade on the binding post in the back. I imagine it was probably a, you know, your typical 70s crappy speaker terminal. So it was nice that he added these 5-way binding posts. According to Wikipedia, there were several people involved with Rectilinear in the beginning. Even John Dahlquist was involved with the Rectilinear speaker. And it goes on to say, although Rectilinear speakers were distributed through a nationwide network of up to 400 dealers, most of the sales were generated on the East Coast. Really cool history from a New York manufacturer back in the golden era of 70s hi-fi. Rectilinear, don't overlook it. And this one I would definitely put on the sleeper list. This is another one of those brands that people shy away from because they had such a bad stigma to them. Back in the 70s, we all gave people that owned realistics, you know, a little bit of a rubbing. You know, oh, Tim's got a realistic. What a piece of junk. That type of thing. And it's silly because these are made really well. But again, another spotty brand, kind of like the Sanyo. You don't really want to recommend it as a whole brand because some stuff really wasn't very good. This one's good. This is one I would buy. Let's power it up here. I mean, they look so cool. They're really unique in their color scheme with that AM/FM dial. You don't see a lot of red and orange in vintage electronics, but these are super cool. And the realistic STA90 has a phono input, auxiliary, 2 tape monitors, and speakers A and B. And the realistic STA90, in 1978, they were $379 and 45 watts per channel. So this was not a cheap receiver. And it shouldn't be considered a cheap receiver today. These are made really well. And Realistic really wanted you to know that's a genuine walnut veneer cabinet. This thing just screams quality. Standardized transistors, decent sized filter cap, got good metal deflection shields for the lamps. If you were to show this to even somebody that's been in this hobby a long time and you didn't tell them what it was and you just showed them the inside, there's no reason that you wouldn't think this is a Kenwood, a Pioneer, any of the top brands. This is really well made. This is right here, custom manufactured in Japan for Radio Shack, a Tandy Corporation company. And they're giving you the green light for 4-ohm speakers. No problem. You know, these knobs feel really good. Switches feel good. This thing's impressive. 45 watts per channel, huh? So it's essentially the same thing, you know, kind of as a 780 from Pioneer, without the crappy Darlington packs. So this has kind of got a leg up on it. I'm actually going to hook it up to some speakers and give this thing a listen real quick. I'm really impressed. I just got done listening to that Realistic. I put it with the Rectilinear speakers and that thing sounds good. I mean, that is a decent receiver. You know, I've heard other decent Realistic receivers. That's not the first one, but that's the first STA90 I've ever heard. And that thing sounds good. It really reminds me of a Pioneer, to tell you the truth. 45 watts per channel drove those Rectilinears, no problem at all. That's a fun receiver. I'm really impressed. I might have to find one. Like I need another receiver, you know. And definitely do us a favor after the video. Head down to the comments below. Are any of these ones you've seen before? Do you have any firsthand experience with them? Those comments really help this channel. I read through every single one of them. I try to reply to as many as I can. Thank you. Definitely let us know what you think. We'll get back to the video. The G.A.S Thaedra. That's right. The name of the company was G.A.S. Really odd name, but it was actually an acronym for the Great American Sound Company. And if I owned one of these back in the day, I am almost 100% positive my friends would say, Kevin's got gas. The Great American Sound Company, again, not a lot of information out there on this brand. I can't even find a date on the Thaedra. They did make a few versions, but I did find that these originally new, the MSRP was $900. This was not a cheap preamplifier when it was made, because I'm going to assume this is probably maybe mid to late 70s. But I'll go over the back panel with you. You've got two phono inputs. You've got a tuner, two auxiliaries, so 3 line level inputs. Then you've got 2 tape loops. You've got a scope. Rob, what do you think the scope output's for on this preamp?
I believe that's a service output for adjusting your bias and minimal distortion.
So for a service tech to do maintenance on it, something like that. There you go. You heard it from the man himself. And then you've got 2 relay controlled outputs. The equipment from this company is pretty well regarded amongst the vintage community. These sell for a pretty good chunk when they do sell, when you do see them. And I understand why. I mean, these are built incredibly well. They sound really, really good. I think one of my favorite things on this preamp is the phono stage. The phono section on this thing is awesome. I think this is another one of those function over form type of pieces. I'm sure the engineers of these knew their potential customer. They wanted to focus on the sound rather than trying to get a buyer off of its looks. And that's what this is. But everything about this preamplifier just screams quality. There was a really good review that's online. We'll have a link below. And the guy that started the Great American Sound Company, I'm going to butcher this, so bear with me. James Bongiorno? Sorry. He actually wrote back to the reviewer that did the review on the Thaedra and told him about some things he missed. And there's some really good information in there, so definitely go check that out if you want to know more about the G.A.S Thaedra. Yeah, and this is one of those, I'm not in any rush to sell this thing. I'm hoping I stumble on an Ampzilla at some point and kind of get to enjoy it with its intended amplifier. But if you are out and about and you do see one of these, this is a sleeper for sure. I think this might be one of the best sounding preamps I've ever heard from the 70s. I think a lot of people agree with me on that. The Sansui FM5. Now, this one I picked up a long time ago. It's not for sale. This is a mono tube tuner from Sansui. And again, there is no information on the internet regarding this thing. This thing is about as simplistic as it gets. On the backside, you literally have a fuse, a single RCA output because it's mono. You've got an adjustment screw, and you've got 2 antenna taps. And that's it. This one's in really good shape. I bought this in a massive collection. I didn't even know it was part of it. And I pulled it out of a box thinking it was maybe just a cheap tuner. And I realized, hey, that's a Sansui. There's no AM on this thing. It is strictly FM, which is really, really odd, at least to me. It does have AFC, which I didn't think was that old, and AFC stands for automatic fine channel. And it has defeat. You've got an on-off switch, and you've got a tuning dial. That's it. With the lack of information on this tuner online, I'm kind of under the impression that these weren't meant to be sold in the US markets, and I could be wrong on that. Let's just take a look at it lit up here. I haven't plugged this thing yet. Oh, there it is. Got lights and everything. So let's see if we get some smoke coming out of it. Yeah, about as basic as it gets. That's what's so cool about this stuff from the 60s. No boards, everything's wired point to point. You gotta love the simplicity in this stuff. Really appreciate you watching another video. Hopefully you have a great week. I'm gonna have a good week. We'll see you next Sunday.